So we are Dusty and Connor McCraw, and we've been married for 7 years, and we are foster and adoptive parents. We first started the process of becoming foster parents actually at an information meeting called Fostering Hope. It was in November of 2019. Walt actually invited us when I was working here on staff at Capstone. We attended that together. We got to hear from adoptive parents, foster parents, former foster youth, and really every aspect and angle of foster care. I think we both left feeling inspired to do something. We didn't know what it was, but we filled out the card.
So after we filled out the information card, we got a call from Heartfelt Calling. They got us in touch with an informational lady. We started the process in January of 2020, went to our first training and got sent home early because of COVID in February 2020. Stretched that process out until September of 2020. So what normally takes 3 to 6 months took about 9.
So it wasn't very long after we got our license that we got our first placement in our home. We actually got the first call for a child before we knew we were licensed. They called us, we were driving to lunch, and I was like, we're not licensed yet. And she said, well, you're in the computer, so if you can take her. So that child was not a great fit for us, but by the next Tuesday, we've been licensed for days, and we got a call for our first baby. We call her B, and they called us late in the evening, and within an hour, she was at our house. So we do not have any biological children. So our first foster placement was the first baby we'd ever had. She was 3 weeks old, and being removed from her mother, she didn't know where she was. She cried all night, and we had no idea what we were doing. We called our Google baby because we Googled everything. We had no idea what we were doing. We called Betsy, and we called Sarah Ellen, and we called Jenny, and people were bringing us diapers and clothes. They were bringing us a bassinet. Betsy came and showed me how to make a bottle for the first time. I had no idea what I was doing, but we adjusted quickly. So we only had B for 5 weeks in our home, and she ended up moving to a kinship placement and then later being reunified with her parents. So after B was reunited with her family, we decided to take a month-long hiatus, a break, which we needed to grieve and process. We went back on the open bed list November of 2020. We got a few calls here and there for the next few months, but they just weren't the right fit. It's actually the middle of March when we got the call for Savannah.
Yeah, it was March 19th actually. I had come home earlier that day, and we were getting ready to go to Anderson, and got a phone call, and they had 3 kids for placement, and we initially told them no, and then Dusty racked her brain for a little bit, and within the hour of that initial phone call, we called back and said if they needed a placement for the baby, we could take them. So within 2 or 3 hours, they had brought Savannah to us.
And we were in love immediately, of course, always.
Oh yeah.
Precious, she was 9 weeks old, so they brought her to us, and we spent the weekend with our parents. Connor's brother drove up from Athens with his wife to see her, and it's just worked out perfectly for her and our family, and for her brothers. We placed with our friends in Simpsonville. We've gotten to see them grow up together and maintain their relationship. We went in initially with both of our children knowing that they were foster children. We did not go in wanting to adopt. We always want up front to be reunifying if it's safe and we're able. So we didn't realize that Savannah would be able to be adopted until much later. We had her all of 2021. The goal was reunification the whole time.
Oh yeah.
And then we ended up having that termination of parental rights hearing in April of 2022 this year. And that's when we finally were like, oh wow, this might actually turn out to be adoption. So still keeping our expectations low, trying to guard our hearts a little bit, not wanting to get too excited. But once those rights were terminated and Betsy was like, hey, she's legally free, let's move forward, we petitioned immediately once the legally free letter came in. And yeah, that was the end of July, and adoption day was October 11th, so we were thrilled.
If I were to talk to a new family or a new couple about what their expectations would be getting into foster care, whether they're wanting to go into it or not, and we've done this many times since we've been in this process, I tell people to go into it knowing that reunification is the end goal. It's not to add to the family, although that does happen, but to make sure you have your heart in the right place, and to also know that while it's very, very difficult and you may not think you can do it, you actually can, and you're making a huge difference in a kid's life.
Yeah, I would tell a family, if you're feeling the pull or the call, explore it. Because even if you can't foster right away, you can go ahead and start the process. You can learn more about licensing or how you could support. You could learn about respite care. Even if you foster one child and you're like, hey, you know what, it wasn't for us, you've changed a child's life for that one time. So you don't have to foster forever. You can foster for a season. You don't have to adopt any child. You can adopt if that happens for your child's case. Be open to different opportunities within foster care and adoption. You never know when that right child is going to be placed in your home.